Hello, it's Charles Folkart on September 11, 2017. And if I do my math correctly, I think this is 16 years after the attack in New York and in Washington there at the Pentagon, and that plane that supposedly went down, and where was it, Shanksville, Pennsylvania, or wherever. So here we are, 16 years later. And if you still believe the official story of 19 heirs with box cutters pulled off 9/11, you're an idiot. You're an flat out idiot. Okay, we're not the idiots. You are. And what I want to talk about here on this one is this illusionary world that I talked about on the previous video. I went to the used bookstore, and 99% of the time I go in there, there's really no very good books there, but in many of the good books I already have. But I was fortunate enough a week or so ago to get this book, and I've been reading through it, and man, this is a very interesting book. Even though the author, Mr. Cole, he's obviously biased, and he's obviously takes the official view. You can, if you know what you're looking for, and you understand real history, the truth, the reality, you can read between the lines and you can see the obvious bias. But Mr. Lindbergh, boy, what a hero he really was. And they went after him. The same people that go after us today went after Charles Lindbergh. He used to be one of my heroes. He was born in the same town I was, in Michigan, and along with Henry Ford. And I lived in Detroit area, outside of Detroit, until I was about 10, 11 years old. I really was interested in Charles Lindbergh, and I have had a chance to read up on him more. This is a very good book. I recommend. But I wanted to talk a little more about this illusionary world, and I'm going to add here Pearl Harbor and nukes. I'm of the opinion now that Pearl Harbor never happened. It never happened the way that we were told. And think how easy it would have been for the American government to pull off a false flag op at Pearl Harbor. What were the Japs going to do? Say, oh no, we didn't do it. They all speak Japanese. TV and radio at that time was very minimal, 1940s. I've looked at these pictures that we were shown, not me personally, but the American public was shown about Pearl Harbor, and I've come to the conclusion that it was a false flag op. And I'm also come to the conclusion that there's no such thing as nukes. Nuclear weapons don't exist. Alrighty? That's my opinion. Now you can the only way that I'll just give you one example why I think that. Nagasaki and Hiroshima should have been uninhabitable. And we should see defects and gross abnormalities in the people in Japan around Hiroshima and Nagasaki. How much of that do we see? Zero. People lived there. They went in, rebuilt, and people have been living in those two areas of Japan since since we supposedly dropped those bombs, those H-bombs, I guess they were, on Nagasaki and Hiroshima. So we live in a world where the majority of the people around you believe in this illusionary world here, and and they believe the government is good. I think we need to put that on there too. So here we are. We got the U.S. government is, oops, kind of hard here, is good. All right. A lot of the people that I talked to yesterday, that was the three people in my previous video, they believe for the most part that our government is good, that they're there to protect us. When things go wrong, they're going to be there, and we can depend on them, and they wouldn't harm us, purposely harm us. And they most certainly did not pull off 9/11, Charles. You're crazy if you think our government was involved in 9/11. So here we are. We live in a world that the majority, 16 years later, still think that 19 arrows with box cutters pulled off 9/11. Alrighty? So think about that for just a moment. How long the perps of 9/11 have been able to get away with it with the majority of the American people and the world for that matter. Now they're the Arabs. I worked in Qatar Petroleum Company Corporation, huge money maker. Boy, they're making money hands over fists. Something said $1 million a minute or $1 million an hour, or some unbelievable. They weren't paying me according to the income that they were making, but I talked to the Arabs there in my classroom. I shut the door one day because I could lose my job for this, and I shut the door. We got to know each other pretty well. These were young men, about 25 years old average. And I shut the door and I said, hey, I want to ask you a question. Who do you think pulled off 9/11? And unanimously, everyone in the room, without exception, they were not living in an illusionary world. They told me that Israel pulled off 9/11. All right? So not everybody is as stupid and duped as the American people. The American people, the American public, for the most part, are pathetic, ignoramuses, stupid idiots. And if you're one of those who still believe that 19 Arabs with box cutters pulled off 9/11, like I said, you're an idiot. But that's the world we live in. So, our leaders, they've got to be concerned that people are going to catch on. People are catching on to the flat earth. And that was a lot, that's a lot harder to pull off than the events on 9/11. But they used the same techniques, and it worked for flat earth for 500 years. And that's why they figured they could pull off. They pulled off Pearl Harbor using the media for the most part, the radio and a little bit of TV. And they probably fooled enough people. Well, they did. They fooled enough Americans, the men, to go enlist and fight for their country. We were attacked by Pearl Harbor, them damn Japs, you know, those nips. And it didn't happen. And that was the same thing they did in the Vietnam War. They used the false flag there in the harbor, and they got a lot of young men gung-ho go fight the communists. Because if Vietnam falls, it's going to have an effect, all the domino effect in Southeast Asia. Meanwhile, while Kissinger was in 1971, had a secret meeting with the Chinese. Okay, folks? They tell us one thing and they go do another thing. I've actually had people tell me there is no such thing as conspiracy theories. They believe, there's a lot of people believe that these leaders, our leaders, get together at the Bilderberg and they're in Davos in Europe and here in Wyoming, when they get together. They just get together, smoke cigars, talk about their golf game and their plans for the future. They're not conspiring together to do evil. Oh, no, 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 no. They wouldn't do that. They wouldn't do that. This is all happenstance. This is all these horrible events. They're just happen. And look what's going on with Korea. Korea is a very good example, real time, how they're using fear and propaganda and images, and they're bombarding us. But not me, because I don't watch TV. And they're bombarding the American public and the European public with images of Kim Jong-un and his threats, blah, 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 blah. And for the most part, I look around me and I think it's working. Most people are afraid. And when I talk to people about how North Korea couldn't fight their way out of a wet paper bag, they look at me like, well, wait a minute, Charles, he's told us some other things that are pretty, were unbelievable, but, they're not disregarding you. Some of the people I talk to, they don't completely refuse to entertain the ideas that some of us have now. So we are making headway, and those who pull this stuff off have got to be concerned that this whole thing's going to blow wide open one of these days. So they're going to have to make their move pretty quick. And they're using the fear of the nukes, the fear of North Korea, the fear of an, EMP, the fear, blah, 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 the fear. They want you to be afraid. And I'm going to do another video here pretty quick, so kind of a follow-up, to help you, at least it's helped me, not to be afraid. If you're prepared for unforeseen events as best you can be, their fear mongering has very little, if no, effect. Okay? So that's what we need to do. We need to prepare. We need to stop being afraid, and then we need to prepare for the worst. Because the worst is going to come, folks. It has to. The money is failing. Their propaganda is failing. The fake news is failing. Their entire system is failing. They just can't keep going on and on and on, committing crimes and committing perjury and murdering people, and keep doing what they're doing. Even the two men that I talk about in the previous video are going to have to at some point go, wait a minute, Charles, you might have a point, and I'm going to have to look into it. I want to say one thing about why I was never fooled about 9/11, not for a second. I was in Hat Yai, Thailand, which is at the very southern tip of Thailand, on 2011, September 11th. The first thing I said when I saw the towers collapse is they put bombs in the building. Now, why I said that? Because that's what it looked like to me. I was in reality, and most Americans are in illusionary world, and they accepted what they were told about 9/11. But that's beginning to wear off, folks. And so our government is going to have to do something here pretty soon. I don't know what they're going to do, but we need to be prepared for it. I want to thank you for watching, subscribing, and supporting this channel. And may the grace of God, Yahweh is his name, may his unmerited favor be upon us all, for we certainly need it. See you.